with the roster you had.
Todd Bowles was also fired with the Jets.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
Which
Todd Bowles after 4
coming.
years. Yeah,
that was coming.
But all I'm going to say is this.
And lastly, Hugh Jackson, as we already knew, was fired earlier in the season.
Yeah, but I just want
to two coaches.
I want to go back to Steve Wilkes. He's another sacrificial lamb because I think they're going to do an Oakland type rebuild. The same thing in Miami because Adam Gase got fired, but Adam Gase was going to get fired. But he's white. But that's different. I'm just talking about organizations and how fits are. I'm not surprised that he got fired.
I feel like when they
the Cardinals organization is in disarray though.
I mean, low key, when they hired Wilkes, like nobody really wanted that job. Yeah. Like, let's just talk about it. Like, they took a chance on Wilkes because they felt like they were a better team than they were, and he came in changing up more shit than they liked and ruffling more flavors than they wanted. And I think they just came to the realization Fitz is on his way out. We don't really know what we have with Rosen. Our O-line's still trash after, like, the existence of the franchise.
Can we talk about how the Raiders traded down to give the Cardinals their franchise quarterback, and now they're probably going to take Josh Allen?
Yeah.
With the number 1 overall pick. Or Joey Bosa's brother. Kind of shot ourselves in the foot. Didn't even get a second round pick.
Which, if Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper's agent finesses his way to signing all the top 20 picks, the Raiders are going to have a really long draft and a really long 5 years.
That's not even including all the guys who are going to make it from like the second to undrafted, like all that. Oh, man. He's going to have to get a ghost agency.
But yeah, man, pretty much. I mean, every year we talk about the Rooney Rule. You know, does it work? Is it effective? Shout out to the LA Times for applauding what they say is their equivalent of the Rooney Rule, and basically, you know, forcing management to interview minority candidates, including LGBTQ and women, for positions.
So non-white men.
Yeah, pretty much. But the point is, with this whole Rooney Rule thing, I mean, ultimately it's supposed to give people more chances, but like, they're not good chances, especially in the case of Wilkes. And I don't know if there's a way of fixing that. So ultimately, the NFL deserves all the scrutiny they're getting because guess what? Who's going to fill those 5 positions? What, 2 college coaches who've never coached in the pros and another 2 rehashes and then maybe 1 of the coordinators from the Super Bowl teams? Like, is that not the breakdown every single year of coaches who get hired? And that's the other thing. That's the other thing about the issue with the Rooney Rule and this whole situation is it only applies to head coaches, but it doesn't address the fact that there are like black assistants who've been assistants for like 20 and 30 years. GMs. And never even gotten a coordinator position or scouts or all
like
that. Like
100. That's the thing I was going to say earlier that I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. It was like a study shown that like 114% of white men in the same positions, like they had the same skill set as their black counterparts for coordinator positions, they got promoted. The black dudes didn't.
Well, think about it.
They either
this
got demoted or they got no job.
Think about it this way: Sean McVay is a great coach. Like, I'm not saying anything about his.
Eric Bieniemy is a great offensive coordinator.
I'm not saying
for the
anything
Chiefs.
about Sean McVay as a head coach, but honestly,
he got fast tracked.
Yeah,
he got pushed to the line.
I mean, when you compare it to Anthony Lynn, who also didn't really have a coordinator position, also got hired for an LA team.
But that's one of the rare cases where somebody made the right choice and players backed it from other teams.
Besides that, Lynn was an assistant coach for like 20 years, like a high-ranking assistant coach, and played in the league. McVay didn't have any of that pedigree.
Yeah.
So it's
in a league that's like 70 to almost 80% black.
I mean, even Shanahan didn't have a job. And look at
Kyle Shanahan. That's nepotism in his dad.
He was only offensive coordinator for what, 1 season?
Nepotism in his father.
And how long was Hugh Jackson? How long did it take for Hugh Jackson to get a second shot?
He came from Dorsey High School too, by the way.
Point is, we always talk about it on this podcast, but there's a problem with leadership overall across our society. and the NFL is no exception. It's just that
You said it's a what? Is it a microcosm of life?
It's just that it's even worse because the labor force is 70% black.
80%, if we're gonna be honest. If you're talking about like, there's players, trainers behind the scenes. Like, how many black dudes are like intern coaches and deserve a coaching spot somewhere? John Harbaugh was a special teams coach.
Well, it took.
Think about that.
Well, Bell's got interviewed a couple times before he finally broke through.
Vance
Joseph took two.
Remember Ray Horton?
Yeah.
He should have been like, he was like, oh yeah, the Arizona Cardinals had one of the best defenses in the league, and he didn't even, I think he interviewed for the Cleveland Browns job, but he wasn't going to get it. And we saw how that ended up.
All right.
Greg Williams got interviewed. Freddie Kitchens got interviewed for the Browns head coaching gig. It's like, and then Louis Riddick still doesn't have a job with the NFL, but Mike Mayock does. Oh wait,
I mean, Louis Riddick co-signed Mike Mayock, and wasn't Louis Riddick in the front office before?
Yeah,
he was with the Eagles.
That was I think the Redskins, and he played in the league. But that was actually one of our next points, I think, on there was Mike Mayock was the GM for the Oakland Raiders.
Your first good segue / transition in 104 episodes. Congrats, Kenny. You are 100% right.
I'm really good at this, man. It's a gift. I do it in my own way.
The Oakland Raiders, after what people thought would take a long time, a long-term process, came out of nowhere and signed Mike Mayock as their general manager. Now, you may know Mike Mayock as the NFL analyst who had, I think it was D'Angelo Williams and Rashad Mendenhall over Darren McFadden.
Turns out to be really good picks, too, by the way. I mean, actually, if the Panthers had McFadden.
What I will say about Mayock, and you're talking about someone who watches the combine.
Mike Mayock picked Blaine Gabbert over Cam Newton.
He did do that. But what I will say about Mike Mayock is, unlike draft analysis at other major networks, Mayock is not afraid to stray away from the pack. Like, he's not afraid to make some out there prediction. And a lot of times he's wrong, as are most of us. But he's also been right a few times. So it all just comes down to, as a general manager, understanding the cap and understanding the dynamics of running an organization. There's no doubt in my mind that Mike Mayock is a capable scout. And the good thing about this hire is he's already so caught up on the college circuit. There's going to be less of a learning curve when the combine comes. Bro, I don't want to see yeah, dude. You're that kid right now.
I'm over it.
Yeah, you're that kid right now, bro.
I'm over it.
You're that kid right now.
That's disgusting.
In class.
No, I'm not.
You're that kid in class who's distracting everyone around him and not focused on the task at hand. That's what you're doing right now.
Actually, I had something to get on the whole Mike Mayock situation. So just
I'm not even done.
I'm waiting on you.
I don't even know where I am. You're over here reading your damn tweet.
I'll tell you where you were at.
Okay, go.
You were talking about how Mayock missed on a couple guys, but
no. What I was going to say is the good thing about the Mike Mayock hire is he's already so plugged into the college circuit, there's going to be less of a learning curve come the combine and draft season, which is good considering the Raiders are probably going to fire most of their scouting people as soon as the combine's over.
They already fired Reggie McKenzie's right-hand man, right?
Yeah, they did. So pretty much that whole front office and scouting personnel group is going to go through a whole complete overhaul, which they just did 5 years ago when Al Davis died, but that doesn't really matter.
As long as they don't pass on, the next Daniil Hunter.
Biggest thing, though, I honestly can't write the amount of cliches that Mayock and Gruden are going to share with each other.
That bubble butt shit is uncomfortable, dude. Don't look at another man's ass at the combine, but he got a big old bubble butt. That's suspect.
Besides all that,
he needs to quit with that shit.
With the fact that Sheldon Anderson pretty much has his hands in the Raiders Stadium, I do expect the Las Vegas media to totally play patty cake with the Raiders organization, especially with Mayock and Gruden giving them great quotes every single week. So there's that element of it. And honestly, it's more of a wait and see because Mayock hasn't been a GM. And we know he interviewed for the position before when Al Davis was alive, but it didn't work out. So we'll see kind of how it breaks down. I would have liked to see, I wouldn't have mind seeing Louis Riddick in that position.
I think he'd be perfect for the Baltimore Ravens because Ozzie Newsom's like, there's only one dude left and it's in Miami once Ozzie Newsome retires. And that dude's running football operations now. But I would say with Mayock, the biggest thing is going to be college scouting at positions of need. Like, none of that whole stupid, we can just build and develop a linebacker. No, get the best player available. If you're not going to trade down, get the best player available for what you need. You should be looking at what you lack and go off that. I was talking to Terry in multiple group chats and multiple forums and on Twitter. Like, you build from the trenches out. And the problem with Oakland is, I'm seriously, I really hate that Brandon Parker pick. I really thought it was a terrible, bad pick. I just think they really missed the boat. They could have had Rasheem Green. They could have had. Still, it's a bad pick. He wasn't going to start. And, like, okay, if you get Cole Miller, that solves one of your problems. He can be the right tackle, or fine, the left tackle, make Donald Penn the right tackle. But you don't draft another tackle. Like, no. I would have been looking at Wisconsin like, oh, no, they're going to grow another one. Because Wisconsin's tackle just declared for the draft. No, let me get this off. So, when it comes to that, there were several linebackers in that third round, at least 5 they could have got, who would have been starting from them and probably would have been really good. Defensive linemen, like Rasheem Green, really good. There's cats they could have got. I remember when they passed on Frank Clark, and what did he do? Had 14 sacks this year. Seems to me no one's talking about his domestic violence case at Michigan anymore. That stopped real quick. He's been producing since he's been in the league. I'm saying Mayock should really focus on the 1st and 5th rounds for not just getting guys who can be projects, getting someone who can come in and play. That's what Oakland needs to do. They really need to tighten up on their development and getting guys who can actually play. You get developmental guys between the 5th and the 7th round. You get guys who can come in and start or be spot starters in the 1st and the 4th.
Not if you're Reggie McKenzie, who keeps using that 2nd round to take developmental players.
And it was
ultimately his undoing.
Honestly.
But
by the way, we never actually had a chance at Chris Jones unless we traded up.
My whole take on
they could have took Chris Jones in the 1st round, but that would be considered a reach if we're being honest.
My whole take on the tackle situation is not, and you alluded to it, is not.
I can name names.
Not them taking tackles. It's the tackles they took, the developmental players who you knew needed a year or 2 of seasoning.
Parker might be a washout
and
in 2 years.
And not even just that, but they're not even like, they were never physical players. Like, you need physical tackles when you have a running back like Marshawn Lynch,
which they did.
Otherwise, you're no better than Seattle. Shout out to them and Tom Cable.
Not only the Colts when they couldn't get offensive linemen right, but nah, like, yeah, Cable should be fired too. But that's a whole nother story. They just mostly don't have anybody who's has enough balls to tell him he's fired. That's probably why he won't be fired. I wouldn't even come in with tape them knuckles. I would just come in with the piece on my hip, like, yo, Tom, you got to get out. No, I'm just kidding.
You're not though.
What he said. But anyway, when it comes to that, like, bro, they could have got Malik Jefferson out of Texas. Would have solved their coverage problem at linebacker, and just he runs a 4.52. Like, put him in a place to where he can go hit somebody. He can play will linebacker, whatever. Say whatever you need, because their linebackers were terrible. They were god awful this year. Tahir Whitehead, Emmanuel Lemur is not a starting linebacker. They never even played Nicholas Morrow, who actually can be something in coverage. They didn't do that. They could have got Fred Warner, who could have came in and actually fixed their middle linebacker problem. They could have got the dude out of Stanford, Harrison Phillips. He would have actually been a perfect. That's why I'm like, I don't know why they're talking about D tackles. You got old boy out of Michigan last year, Hurst, and then you got the guy in the 2nd round. out of the same Houston State. I don't know why I'm spacing out on his name right now.